Hello and welcome to Chapter 2 Part 2, or Part B even. We're going to be in this video starting to actually produce the assets. So again, down in the description there'll be a PSD file. So this PSD file will contain this template that you see on screen right now, and it will contain this folder. So in this folder structure we have our puppet, we have our head, we have frontal, left and right quarter. So we're going to be focusing on straight on this way and this way. We're not going to be focused on up or down quite yet. We might come to that later on, potentially towards the end of the pipeline. And in each of these folders we have each of our assets sort of created or in sort of named. Each of these layers currently contain nothing. So we're going to need to start to generate a kind of the facial features ourselves. So this again depends on how comfortable you are with your drawing, or whether you want to sort of start to source assets or get photographs and create collages, cutting things out. That's the kind of level you need to kind of start to think about exactly what aesthetic you want your puppet to have. It can work with photos, so you could take photos, cut them out and do it that way. But what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be largely generating the most basic of face structures for now. And as we kind of come to the end of the pipeline, I'll sort of show you my own interpretation or my own creation using this. I'm not going to do that live for you during these tutorials because the time that would be required to create something that looks amazing is just longer than I would want to show, and also I don't really want to kind of bore you with I move this here and then I create a shadow there. You know, it's more get the principles across, get it working so we can get through the pipeline. So today I'm going to start off kind of back to front. So we're kind of going to work about this building the base first, and the base we're going to work on is this background. So our face background obviously will be, you know, imagine my face without any of the facial features. That's going to be the thing that kind of is everything is parented to, or is the main kind of tracking point essentially. So in the folder group head frontal background we have this little layer called face background, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, within Photoshop, going to create a basic kind of facial shape. So I'm going to kind of do a very rough version of my kind of robot. So you may have seen I have this sort of animated basic robot that I created. I used to use for communities and schools, largely when I was working with a lot of kids. It was a kind of friendly, approachable design. Some people have said it looks a bit like Bad Robot. I can see that. So I'm just going to create a shape. So I'm going to have this head be quite rectangular and just put this in the center of my canvas. So I'm working 1920 by 1080 canvas size. It doesn't make a huge difference what canvas size you work with as long as you keep everything to scale. So everything that we generate in this folder or this layer structure needs to be the exact scale we want it to be in relation to each other, because we're going to keep everything contained into this one Photoshop file. So bear that in mind. So I'm just going to put this head in the middle, but slightly high because I might potentially build a body for him. And I'm just going to give a little bit of detail, not a huge amount again. This depends on how long you really want to sort of spend on this. So I'm just going to give him some little basic bolts. Let's find let's try and go a nice kind of grey. I'm just going to build this basic little bolt. Again, we're making sure that everything that we draw will be on this background layer. It doesn't matter if it puts on a layer for now. I just need to make sure I put everything flattened onto that background layer at the end. In fact, it's not quite behaving at the moment. So what's going on here? My fill's off. Okay. Cool. So background layer selected. Draw a little circle. And zoom in. probably not going to be noticeable. So let's rasterize layers. So again, I'm not kind of spending too long on this. I'm trying to do this fairly fast. So I'm just going to select that circle, Command C, Command V, and just sort of paste this over here somewhere. So again, I could spend ages on this. I probably will spend a bit of time in between each of these sessions making it look better. So this is my general head background. So this is going to be whatever it's going to be pinned to, attached to. I'm just going to flatten all those together. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got that named correctly. So referring back to this. So if any doubt I get confused or kind of make sure I've got anything wrong, I can always go back and check. So in fact, it doesn't really matter too much what this is called. So I'm just going to call this, double click, head, oh actually I'll call it face, would make more sense. There we go. And now I'm going to start with the eyes. So I'm going to start with the left eye and I'm going to create the eyeball. So because it's a robot, I'm going to go with a kind of more colourful tone. So I'm going to go with a kind of bluish colour. And I want to position this again roughly where I want it to be. So it doesn't have to conform to human structures as long as the tracking points are tagged correctly. So that's my right eyeball. I'm going to create a basic pupil. And because the robot doesn't have to be a circle, it can be any shape I want it to be. So in this case I'm going to make a little rectangle. And I want to make sure that's dead on the middle of my circle. So with the neutral expression, we want to make sure the pupils are straight on, the mouth is sort of straight, everything is in a neutral position at this point. It's only once we start getting into the mouth area that we need to start creating emotive expressions. So with these two create, I'm just going to select them both. In fact, I'm just going to select the eyeball first, press Command C, go to my left eyeball, paste it onto that layer. Position it. There we go. And I'm going to do the same with the pupil. So you notice that the pupil has this plus, which I said in the last video, it indicates it being a kind of key property, a crown essentially within the software. There we go. So that hopefully should auto tag it once we bring this into manage down. There we go. And lastly, I'm just going to create a blink expression. So again, I'm going to go to the right eyeball, and I'm just going to create a kind of, I'm just going to basically duplicate my circle, and because it's a robot, they don't really close their eyes, it's more of a screen. My computer's being a little bit tetchy. And I'm just going to fill this in with a kind of grey colour, because when he blinks, his screens are going to turn off essentially. That's my logic. Merges down, there we go. Copy that and duplicate it onto my left eye. Move down. There we go. So now we just have basic head shape and some eye expressions. Turn off the blinks and leave our pupils on. So we should have it looking like this at the moment. If I quickly file, save as, I'm just going to save this as my puppet template. I should then be able to go over to Photoshop. So let me just, over to Cat Animator. Go to File, import, navigate to my puppet template or the head I'm creating, press import. I can then drag my puppet template to the little, with the puppet template selected, I can collect this little cinema icon, little film icon, press that, it creates a new scene. And what this will do is you should now see we have our robot kind of, its head moving, sort of tracking my head because I've named it correctly. It's knowing that that is the kind of background. When I blink, the eyes turn off, the screen goes to the pupils. So because I made those circles black, when I blink his screens go off. When I move my pupils around, his pupils will move. And basically, as you can see, we've got the very basic cornerstones of our character. Now, in between this session and next session, I'm probably going to actually improve the eyes, add a bit of shading in there, give it a bit more life, give it a bit more personality. But again, we're going to kind of go through each step, generating the assets, and then in between each session, I'll spend a bit longer to make them look a bit better. And at the end of it all, this entire project or entire Photoshop file will be available for free down in the description of the final video in this pipeline. So again, feel free to carry on. So if you want eyebrows, we can also create eyebrow assets. Because this is a robot, I'm not sure I'm going to have eyebrows. But again, we'll see how that goes. And same with a nose, we can create a nose asset. Again, because it's a robot, it's going to be quite, nose wouldn't necessarily make sense. So again, think about the context of the character you're trying to create. Not everything has to be enabled. It doesn't necessarily have to be tracking or doing anything. It's just, again, it depends on how emotive or how expressive you want your final character to be in terms of what layers you need to create and actions you're going to make. And then speaking of actions, that just towards the end, we will be making custom actions. So I will be making an action, for example, that can make the eyes kind of spark or glow. And we'll be looking at how we generate that afterwards, and we'll also be looking at tweening again once we move on to the mouth part. So in the next part, or part C, we're going to move on to the kind of the more tricky part, the bit that requires more work, the mouth. So we'll see you again in that part, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.